Heyo everyone, it's me again, and yes, I have a little bit of an announcement. Playing is the music from the album that's the soundtrack album for Her Revenge, which is book 4 of She Knows. That's right, this is a video of the book. So apologies, I know it's been such a long time since book 3 and book 4 coming out. A lot of things has happened, a lot of things have changed, and time, money, life intervened, and health, everything. Uh, I'm now in a position where I can start writing again and doing what I like. Um, it's not gonna be. I'm just gonna focus on the writing and the music, but I'm not really gonna start doing the website again until I'm more stabilized again uh, and more structured. Um, Half of the problem is that the people that I was publishing with merged with Amazon, so they now joined with KDP, which used to be the ebook publisher, and and that basically is now basically Amazon is my publisher, which I don't like. So I'm probably going to be looking for another publisher after this. Um, but Her Revenge, Book 4, I hope to be coming out at the end of this month. I'm working on it every single day until I can get it done. 24th is my ideal goal that I penciled in. I don't know if I'm going to get it there on time, but we'll see. I'm pretty close. I've done recent courses in English and stuff, improving my writing skill. So I'm hopefully putting what I learned into the book, which means I have completely rewritten some of the chapters again, and I'm going back to basically the basics. But this book will be the last in the She Knows series. I did or had intentions of doing another one after this, 4.2, but I'm just gonna combine that into this story and make book 4 a nice even number of the series, 4 books, not 4.2, and then we'll go over there. I do have other ideas for other series. Just I'm gonna stick to like single books until I have an idea for a series. Um, but this story should round everything off nicely. Now, I know you probably wasn't expecting this, but I'm gonna read a chapter for you. Chapter 3 from book 4, Her Revenge. You know what? No, hold on. So you get an idea of what's going on and what this book is about, if the title didn't already give it away. I'm going to go ahead and read the introduction and then chapter 3. Keep in mind this is unedited, so it may change, but it's been rewritten since the last time. So, okay. Let me turn the music all the way down so I can hear. The album, or the soundtrack album, has been updated for the book, so that's what was playing in the background. Okay, introduction. Revenge is a tool built best with suitable, no, not fear, but time. To some, revenge means resulting to violence because it's what feels right. It feels good to let out the anger or the hatred. Is it though? Time and time again, we have seen examples of where you are passionate about something or someone. It ultimately motivates you to a course of action. Thereby, our greatest strength is also our greatest weakness. To explain in terms to which you will understand this better, you may say that your partner is the best thing that ever happened to you. They bring out all the good things about yourself for everyone to see. So your girlfriend or your wife is referred to as your better half, which is a term you may have heard used. So what if that person is used against you? Displaying too openly that you are devoted to that one person ultimately provides someone the perfect means to get revenge against you without even laying a finger on you. Thereby, your greatest source of strength is now also your greatest weakness. Others only need to plant the seed of doubt with the possibility and not actually do anything can set things in motion to unravel your nerve. Using fear to get their revenge by allowing time to do its thing. Fear is one thing, but time mixed with doubt can be a real killer. You think there isn't a man who goes to bed with a woman who isn't wondering if she has an ice pick under the mattress after watching the movie Basic Instinct? Sure, it may seem silly or preposterous. However, it isn't so preposterous when the lights get turned off and your partner just strapped your hands to their headboard and gagged you with her hot lacy panties. Just for an instant, there is that potential where fiction, fear, doubt merge with perfect timing. That, my friends, is control. That is the ultimate reward for anyone seeking revenge, to re-establish control, to right a wrong. Where we feel the victim, be it someone looked at us the one way, said something wrong, or did something wrong, in whatever we feel unjust, for that moment you admitted weakness, meaning you lost control. To re-establish that control in our own mind, and in the mind of the person who wronged us, we need to strike revenge. This is all revenge is about. Now, if you add all of that to the complexity of a woman's mind, the options multiply. If she knows, then the options are endless. Where for someone there would be limits to how far you would go to seek your revenge. When she knows, all options are on the table. So to any boyfriend or husband out there reading, be very careful when you decide to tempt fate and call her fat. I made that mistake once too. Never again. The ignorant of you will be most likely saying, how bad could it be? I mean, the worst they can do is break up with me. Well, all I would say is try it, because if she knows, then she'll make the puppet master of the 1989 movie look like a novice in comparison when she's done with you. Don't know how? She knows. If this maybe sounds simple enough to plan out and predict and or prevent, I would say this. If I were to combine the other qualities we learned in the previous titles, it isn't so easy anymore, is it? Cold, calculating, double talk, with her intuition, with her knowing you and how you operate, knowing how you to shape her appearance to you, with her knowing you better than you know yourself. It may well just be your better half could be the most dangerous, costly, and deadliest person you will ever come to meet. And there you were thinking you would die from global warming or World War III. Trust me, she knows. Chapter 3. 4 years ago. The rain was crashing down hard on the red surface. On the hard tarmac were mingling with the pools of blood coming from the body. The lights flashing growing in number as the mass of emergency vehicles responded to the distress call that was made on the radio. 2 fingers were placed on the side of the neck again. Then a hand was reversed and held over the mouth to feel any signs of breathing. As the rain continued to pour down, contaminating the scene. Where was that ambulance? Then there was a sharp cough and spurt from the body, then nothing, as the head fell to the side. The hand felt for the pulse again, while the other hand continued to apply pressure to one of the wounds. About another 2 more hands were needed. Where was that ambulance? Where was the help? With a heavy sigh, the person looked up and around, with nothing except the phone that lay discarded, still laid open with some sort of video or picture over the to the distance. Also, I misread that. With a heavy sigh, the person looked up and around. Nothing except the phone that lay discarded, still laid open with some sort of video or picture. Over to the distance, a man holding a woman. With another heavy sigh, he let go and relaxed as he looked down. It was over. Captain Howard removed his jacket and placed it over the body that was Chris, to try and preserve what remained of any physical evidence that wasn't destroyed by the rain or by him attempting to administer first aid. He placed a baseball cap which he obtained from his truck and placed it over the phone, again to preserve the evidence until the crime scene unit could document and record everything. Captain Howard started to go over to see Wilkinson. As he approached, the help finally arrived. About 6 to 8 patrol cars all showed up. Howard didn't really care by this point. Followed by the bus, which was the ambulance. Just in time to be of little to no use, Howard muttered to himself. He placed a sympathetic hand on Wilkinson's shoulder. "Is she 10-4? Howard asked. "1 GSW. Applying pressure. She lost blood." Wilkinson had been pressing hard on top of Sarah's wound. It stopped a bad situation from getting worse. It bought her the time for the help to get there. The ambulance reversed up to where Wilkinson was. It was a blur to him. Then getting the stretcher and coming to the other side of Sarah might as well not have happened at all. He was oblivious to it all. For that continuous long painstaking agonizing moment, from the time he saw Lynn with the others drive off to him bolting headlong, practically sliding to her in a fashion that the Yankee scout would most likely consider recruiting him. Nothing else but him and the woman who lay before him was there. The only thing he saw was the woman he adored, was hurt, bleeding. She had reached out a hand as he slid in, grasping the clasped hands. "Long enough for I love you, Red. I'm so sorry for hurting you," as Sarah passed out. Since then, Wilkinson hadn't moved, half cradling her while holding on tight with both his hands, as he had let go of her hand to apply pressure onto her gunshot wound. Wilkinson couldn't or didn't hear them. He was in shock. Captain Howard, with one of the other officers that had arrived, had to physically pull him off and to hold him back took another 2 well-built, 6-feet-tall police officers before they let him go. Once the paramedics had secured her on the bus, Wilkinson bolted to the ambulance and climbed in. "Sarah!" he shouted. "Sit down and let us do our job, sir," the MT ordered as the door was closed. The ambulance bolted, skidding, taking about 12 months off their tire tread. The second ambulance was stationary. The crew was looking over the body that remained where Howard had left it just moments ago. Just standing as he started to take it all in. The mass pool of blood that was his detective's blood. He started to try and focus, totally oblivious to himself being soaking wet. The adrenaline was in full force throughout his body, taking in all the details he could, attempting to recall the events that took place. He knew he would have to give a detailed account of everything that happened leading up to this moment. Not having a body camera, they would have had to rely on the dash camera on his truck. And then he started to look to see if there was any other type of camera he could see. This was an active crime scene now, he said more to himself as a mental cue. He used his radio to report his status was 10-4, which means okay. He knew the protocol. Technically, Wilkinson was supposed to have stayed on the scene too, but good luck trying to stop him. There was nothing short of putting him in cuffs. Physically locking up in a patrol car would have stopped him, and he wasn't about to do that to him. He knew Wilkinson wasn't in any state to answer questions. Also, he were more likely to remember more facts after some time had passed. The agent of the USCIS, United States Customs and Immigration Services, showed up looking perplexed. He expected to find a plane with people after an emergency landing, to find an entirely different situation. "Great," This means the feds will want this now, Howard stated as he noticed his opposite number in the major crime scene unit started to approach him. He was 6'4", 6 inches tall, thin Hispanic man in his 40s, a Lieutenant Ryan. You okay? You alright? He asked Howard. Yes, he replied. You sure? Lieutenant Ryan replied, looking over him, checking for gunshot wounds and seeing the blood on his pants, was checking for any other wounds. It isn't mine. His, Howard pointed to the body. Okay, I need to get a quick preliminary from you. You sure you know the drill? Sorry, let me say that again. Okay, I need to get a quick preliminary from you. Sure you know the drill. You're going to have to repeat it several times to multiple people, Lieutenant Ryan instructed. Howard nodded the acknowledgement. Okay, from the beginning, what happened? Ryan got out his notepad and pen and checked to make sure his body camera was red, as in recording. Sergeant Wilkerson, one of my detectives, and I were at my apartment. We received a message from our UC, undercover agent, of the 4 letters referring to this municipal airport, KHPN. Howard started to explain. We have been following a person of interest from the United Kingdom that Wilkerson has been following. En route, we started to receive text messages that our UC was in trouble, which is when I radioed the 1033. Who was the message from? Ryan asked. We believe the person of interest, Howard replied. So the first message was from your UC, and the subsequent messages were from another person? Lieutenant Ryan asked next. Correct, he replied. So between the first text message and the rest, they knew you were coming here? Lieutenant Ryan asked next. Howard repeated his previous answer. How do you suspect the individual knew you were coming from the time you left? Ryan asked. My detective had to have been with the individual at the time of the first text, and her cover got blown, Howard reasoned. And that is Detective Sarah went missing after her last incident where her car was found abandoned and presumed dead in the house fire, Lieutenant Ryan asked. It was a testament to how well and how often Ryan had to have done this that he was able to ask such a question in such a way without any hint of accusation and sound completely sympathetic. It was done to establish trust and her cover with the individual, Howard lied. Truth be told, he had no idea at the time, except that little talk the two had in his office. It was her, Detective Sarah, that told him Lynn had informed her she was fighting on the wrong side. He didn't want to believe she had actually turned. Right now, though, Howard had no clue of her motives or reasons. However, she was one of his. If it needed to be done, he would clean house, but not until he had talked to her first, not until he explored every avenue. That text telling him where to come did come from Sarah. Wilkinson had been sure about that. So when you got here, what did you find? Lieutenant asked next. It was a few moments before Howard replied, lost in thought still. When we arrived, we saw the plane, 2 people on the ground, and a group of women getting into a car driving off. One appeared to be the person of interest. Wilkinson bolted to Detective Sarah. I arranged the individual here, Howard explained. Do you know who he is? Ryan pointed. No, never seen him before. No ID. I presume he was one of those who arrived on the plane. He pointed to the hat. There was a cell phone underneath the cap. It was still on and unlocked. I placed the cap over it to protect it from the rain after he passed. How many people you see at or around the car before it drove off? Lieutenant Ryan asked next. 7. I hadn't seen any of them before, he replied. In a car? Ryan was puzzled. What? Oh no, it was a truck, sorry, Howard stated apologetically. It's okay, Captain. It's natural. It will all come to you in time, Ryan reassured. Was your detective already on the ground when you got here? He continued. Yes, he replied. You did not see who shot her? Or if they were still armed? Was the next question. No, sorry. Look, are we done? I want to get up to the hospital, Howard pleaded. He turned to look at the USCIS officer who had been standing listening to the exchange. No, you feds can't have the case. It's ours. Before you dictate policy to me, Howard pointed, raising his finger to his face before the poor chap could muster a response. You better damn well believe this is personal, he said, shoving him in the shoulder with his finger as he turned and started to walk away, saying as he went, 2 of my people were hurt tonight. Over on I-98, about to merge with I-278, heading south, the truck was driving at normal speed. The Avril Lavigne song, I Fell in Love with the Devil, was being played on the vehicle's stereo, while the occupants remained silent. Lola was driving with Anne, riding shotgun. Behind the driver was Raven, still blacked out. She had been hard in rock since she returned from speaking with Chris. She kept her focus out on the road, while Lynn sat in the middle, taking the brief moment to be a kid again, for a few moments, and allowed herself to be comforted by her mum as she sat behind the front passenger. She had an arm around her daughter, although like everyone else, silence was strong, as she too was looking out of her respective window while Lynn was resting on her mother's shoulder. Megan and Lorraine was in the bed of the truck with their backs to the window. Lorraine staring at the space between her feet. All feeling of excitement and jubilant cheer was long gone. Megan was mentally singing along to the song that was being played as she looked and saw where they had been, as she was looking backwards. If you're on a train and you're facing backwards, facing the opposite way that you're going, you're looking where you've been. As the other vehicles on the interstate were traveling in the same direction, no one was speaking. For a while, the silence remained the illusion. No one was speaking. For a while. I messed that up. No one was speaking. For a while, the silence remained. The illusion that everything was still the same was kept. No one wanted to be the one to rip off the psychological band-aid. Everyone knew it couldn't last. It had to end eventually. For this moment in time, the bliss was continued, to be enjoyed by all. Megan was holding on to the nail polishes that Lola had given her. Lola was more than likely right. She wouldn't be able to return to the hospital and keep her job after her little hospital breakout with Raven. She was absolutely resolute she had done the correct thing. She didn't second-guess herself for an instant. She didn't really believe anyone else would understand. It wasn't that she felt she wouldn't be believed, more to the fact that they wasn't there in the room. They didn't see the intensity of the situation on Raven's face. She even admitted to herself that she more than likely would have done the same thing in her position. After hearing the retelling of the events by Len and seeing the video of Chris murdering her father, Chris had failed to understand just why and how he had hurt Raven. In his quest to help her with her father, which was why Raven had made him promise. She had made Chris promise not to help because of the exact reason she didn't want to be reminded. Every time she looked at him, she would have seen the person who killed her dad. Despite his intentions, despite the evil, horrible things her father was doing to Raven, he was still her father, his sister's father. She didn't want to love the killer of her dad, no matter how much she loved Chris. Raven, thinking to herself, was silently thankful that Courtney was dead. She had hated her for what she did with Chris. Sure, she was mad at him, but she knew Courtney was the one in full control. She took advantage of the situation being where she was and could have stopped it, instead of encouraging it. It kept replaying in her mind the moment he had rejected Courtney because he was in her room. He had loved Raven. Raven had known he was still in love with Lynn, but she was 4,000 miles away. Lynn had attempted to give Chris the chance before things went the way they did. However, he didn't have the foresight to see Lynn already knew Chris was still in love with her, while being in love with Raven at the same time. He just couldn't stop lying to himself. Stupid idiot, Lynn quietly said to herself as she briefly lifted her head to look towards Raven. If you tell someone not to look down, you know exactly that's what they would do, Lynn thought. It was true Lynn took Chris for granted, and really hadn't given it much thought. Her mother messaging her letting her know he was still missing her had made her kind of feel special. When she found out that Chris needed Lynn's help, she was glad he had thought of her. She was jealous that he had found someone else. She knew he would have had to eventually. It was still a sucker punch to the stomach. Believing it is one thing, actually knowing it was another. Chris liked strong women. Lynn initially wanted to see how good Raven was, and see if she was good enough for Chris, as in protecting him. Then she wanted to punish her at the same time for daring to take him from her. Chris was her lost puppy, not hers. After thinking that, she immediately felt guilty. She didn't expect to come to like Raven. Chris apparently had chosen well, for Raven was so characteristically alike to Lynn that it hadn't gone unnoticed by anyone. Chris was more likely unconsciously picked Raven for that exact reason. He wasn't over Lynn at the time and came across someone as strong as Raven. If nothing else, what drove the point home that they were both alike is what they had both done to Chris at the end. It was then the police scanner broke the silence with a static. Arrived on scene, one male DOA, one female critical being transported now, the unknown male voice reported. The illusion was broken. He's made his choice then, Lynn said, referring to her friend, Sergeant Wilkinson. Lynn, Raven, Lorraine, even Lynn's mum, who remembered Chris as a boy, friends with her son, didn't have a dry eye. The truck pulled up out front of Credo's as Lola turned the engine off. She turned to face the passengers behind. Lola and Anne, not having been as close to Chris as the others were, the only two who wasn't emotional. Megan was upset only because by how upset Lorraine was as she was recounting the stories of fonder times. What's next? Lola softly asked, seeking an answer from Lynn. The next chapter, Lynn responded as she sat up. And that's the end of chapter 3. I thought that was a nice touch. The next chapter, and it's actually the next chapter. So that's chapter 3. So, as you can hopefully tell, this is going to be a very, very dark book. It's going to have everything hopefully combined into one book, so you see all the qualities of the psyche of the woman's psyche of the previous books put into this. You got to see how the magic's done in the first book. It got explained to you. And then you saw in the second book the perspective of the woman without knowing how the magic was done. And then you learn about the reputation and how some think in regards to themselves and other women. And now it's all coming to the point where it's coming into this final stage. Yeah, it was I thought this would be needed because it's been such a long time since I'd published the last book. Between now, I'm sure some people would need a refresher, so that's why I put the reminder in. It's going to be fun. I'm enjoying writing this. It's really fun. The first chapter I don't want to give away because it kind of gives away the end. I wanted for this particular book to show you one version of the end, and then the rest of the book is showing you how the story came to that. And then at the end is the actual end of the story. Personally, I like it. I think it's clever. So I apologize for my lousy reading. One of the questions I got asked when someone found out that I was publishing my book soon, I was at a diner having lunch, and the waitress was like, "I always wanted to start. I have a book of like all the tales I've been as a restaurant." Um, as an example, someone came in today and asked for a diet water. She wanted to include that into a book, but she says she doesn't know how to start. So how do you start a book? And I said to her, well, that's the easy thing. You don't leave your house unless you know where you're going. Same principle. No, start at the end. Know how your book's going to end. The story's going to end. Start from the end and work backwards. Yeah. You don't leave your house unless you know where you're going first. Whether it's work, shopping, to see people. Same principle. Alright. Adios, amigos.